Tell me. Ready? Good morning, everyone, and welcome to the September 12th meeting of the Memphis and Shelby County Land Use Control Board. My name is Mary W. Sharp. I will be serving as your chairperson today. We will begin this morning's meeting with a roll call. Mr. Ragsdale, would you proceed, please?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Mr. Gill.
Here.
Kennan.
Present.
Ms. O'Connell. Mr. Thomas. Mr. Tolles. Ms. Wilbanks. Dr. Norman.
Here.
Vice Chair Lyles Wallace.
Here.
Chair Sharp.
Here.
We have a quorum.
It seems my microphone is too loud.
Now, this is the one we were having issues with a few weeks ago. What we can do here. Hold on one second.
It's like it.
I would like to remind you that copies of today's agenda are located at the front right podium if you need them. If you wish to be a speaker on any case that is on today's agenda, please fill out an attendance speaker's card located at the front podiums. Once you have filled out that card, please bring it up front and hand it to one of our DPD staff members located at the left podium. When that agenda item is called, you will be given an opportunity to speak. At this point, I would like to read our conflict of interest statement. The adopted policy of the Land Use Control Board requires that any member of the board recuse himself or herself from any participation in the discussion or voting on any matter on the meeting's agenda in which he or she may have direct or indirect personal interest. The member shall vacate his or her seat during deliberation on any matter from which they have recused themselves. An abstention may substitute for a recusal for the purposes of maintaining a quorum. I would now like to get approval of our minutes from the last meeting. May I please have a motion?
I move to approve the minutes.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion, we have a second. Is there any discussion? Is there any discussion? Hearing none, I assume we're ready to vote. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Those against, nay. Motion carries. Thank you. Mr. Ragsdale, may I please get a secretary's report for this month and an explanation of today's procedures?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I don't have a secretary's report, but I do want to recognize our two newest members. One is probably still stuck in traffic. Mr. Michael Winter he did confirm he will be here. And then Dr. Keith Norman is with us, and we welcome him to the board. And we're glad to have you guys joining us and look forward to the next few years with you guys being with us here on the board. So, and with that, I'll go into the procedure for the meeting. At the beginning of today's meeting, we will establish a consent agenda for those items where no one in the audience or on the board is requesting an individual public hearing. After the consent agenda is established and approved, we will move on to the regular agenda. For each case listed on the regular agenda, the DPD planner will give a presentation. This will be followed by the applicant's presentation and any testimony from others who support the application. The applicant and supporters will be given a total of 10 minutes. Following each speaker, the chair will ask the board members if they have any questions for that speaker. Next, the opposition will be given a total of 10 minutes to present their case. Following each speaker, the chair will ask the board members if they have any questions for that speaker. Finally, the applicant will then have a 3-minute rebuttal period under the same rules. Following all the presentations and after all parties have been heard, the chair will ask the board members how many additional questions of anyone who spoke. Then the chair will close the public hearing portion of the case, entertain a motion on the matter, discuss, and then vote on the application. If an applicant or any speaker would like to be heard after the conclusion of the public hearing portion of the case, or if a board member wishes to hear any additional testimony from any party for additional clarification, a motion will need to be made along with a second and then a 2/3 affirmative vote of the board is required to reopen the public hearing portion of the agenda item. If the public hearing is reopened, both the applicant and the opposition will be allowed an equal amount of time to provide additional testimony. After the additional comments, the board will close the public hearing portion of the case and deliberate and then take a final vote. Again, if any member of the audience wishes to provide testimony in support of or in opposition to a case, he or she will need to fill out a speaker's card. These are available at the front podium. Speakers' cards are not required of applicants since their names are already part of the record.
Thank you, Mr. Ragsdale. The board is a supporter of community involvement, and we welcome neighborhood comments and feedback. We are respectful of the fact that many of you have taken off work or adjusted your schedules to be here today, but we ask that your comments please be made within the time frame allowed. If there are multiple speakers, please try not to be repetitive so as to make the most of your side's 10-minute time allotment. Lastly, I'd like to ask you all to silence your cell phones so as not to interrupt or disturb anyone during today's proceedings. With our procedures now explained, I would like to introduce to my right Ms. Lisa Wilbanks, who will be this morning's consent agenda chairperson. Ms. Wilbanks will read items 1 through 27 as a consent agenda. Once the consent agenda is read, if you wish to discuss one of those items individually, please come forward and give us the item number, and we will pull that case. We will then vote on the remaining consent agenda items as one vote, and following the vote, we will hear the cases that were pulled individually. Ms. Wilbanks, will you proceed, please?
Yes, ma'am. Item number 1 has been withdrawn. Item number 2, case PD 2024-008 in Core City. The request is a new plan development to allow residential and retail uses located at 401 Dr. MLK Jr. Avenue. Staff recommendation is hold for 1 month. Item number 3, case SUP 2024-020 near Lamar. The request is a special use permit to allow a group daycare home located at 2522 Bryan Cove. Staff recommendation is hold for 1 month. Item number 4, case PD 2024-010 in East Memphis. The request is a new plan development to allow a convenience store with gas sales at 5115 Quince Road. Staff recommendation is hold for 1 month. Item number 5, case PD 2024-011 in Whitehaven. The request is to add land to existing commercial Brooks Hernando Plan Development located at 1145 East Brooks Road. Staff recommendation is hold for 1 month. Item number 6, case S 2024-017. The request is a 2-lot residential major subdivision located at 7204 State Line Road. Staff recommendation is approval with conditions and waivers. Item number 7, case SUP 2024-011 near Jackson. The request is a special use permit to allow vehicle sales, ATVs, in the commercial mixed-use 3 district located at 4965 Summer Avenue. Staff recommendation is hold for 1 month. Item number 9, case Z 2024-007 in North Memphis. The request is a rezoning from residential urban 1 to employment located at 1389 Fairfax Street. Staff recommendation is hold for 1 month. Item number 10, case MJR 2024-036 in Westwood. The request is correspondence to allow an increase in the number of children for a child care center located at 4757 South 3rd Street. Staff recommendation is approval with conditions. Item number 11, case MJR 2024-037 in East Memphis. The request is a major modification to allow personal service and catering uses located at 5160 Sanderlin Avenue. Staff recommendation is approval with conditions. Item number 12, case MJR 2024-038 in Core City. The request is a site plan review to allow fencing for the Malco Powerhouse Cinema and the Memphis Farmers Market located at 540 South Front Street. Staff recommendation is hold for 1 month. Item number 13, case MJR 2024-039 in Core City. The request is a site plan review to allow more density in a residential development located at 2371 Avery Avenue. Staff recommendation is hold for 1 month. Item number 14, case MJR 2024-040 CO in unincorporated Shelby County. The request is a major modification to allow a previous bank drive-through for a drive-through restaurant located at 1105 North Houston Levee. Staff recommendation is hold for 1 month. Item number 16, case PD 2024-013 in Parkway Village. The request is a new plan development to allow a drop yard located on the south side of East Shelby Drive, approximately 700 feet west of Tullahoma Road. Staff recommendation is a hold. Item number 18, case RC 2024-002 in East Memphis. The request is the deletion of the residential corridor overlay located at and around 621 South White Station Road. Staff recommendation is approval. Item number 19, case S 2024-026, CO in unincorporated Shelby County. The request is a 7-lot private residential major subdivision located at 10408 Raleigh-LaGrange Road East. Staff recommendation is approval with conditions. Item number 20, case SUP 2024-027 in Parkway Village. The request is a special use permit to allow vehicle rental located at 5709 Mount Moriah Road. Staff recommendation is hold for 1 month. Item number 21, case SUP 2024-029 in Parkway Village. Special use permit to allow vehicle sales located at 5205 Winchester Road. Staff recommendation is hold for 1 month. Item number 22, case SUP 2024-031 in Parkway Village. The request is a special use permit to allow vehicle sales located at 5435 Fox Plaza Drive. Staff recommendation is hold for 1 month. Item number 24, case SUP 2024-033 in Westwood. The request is a special use permit to allow an adult daycare program located at 4744 Dodd Road. Staff recommendation is approval with conditions. Item number 25, case SUP 2024-034 in the University area. The request is a special use permit to allow a bar/tavern located at 485 North Hollywood Street. Staff recommendation is hold for 1 month. Item number 26, case SUP 2024-035 in Core City. The request is a special use permit to allow a drive-through restaurant in the Transit Overlay District located at 2895 Poplar Avenue. Staff recommendation is approval with conditions. Item number 27, case Z 2024-008 in North Memphis. The request is the rezoning from residential urban 3 to residential single-family 8 to employment located on the west side of Sweeney Road, approximately 1,400 feet north of State Line Road. Staff recommendation is approval. That is our consent agenda.
Thank you, Ms. Wilbanks. We have pulled item numbers 8, 15, 17, and 23. The items on the consent agenda will now be voted on with 1 vote, subject to the recommendation of DPD. If the consent agenda is approved, only item number 8, 15, 17, 23 will have full independent public hearings. By voting on the consent agenda, each board member is affirming that he or she has read the staff report and agrees with its findings and, where applicable, its recommended conditions. Can I get a motion, please?
Yes, ma'am. Move to approve item number 2, case PD 2024-008 as a hold. Item number 3, case SUP 2024-020 as a hold. Item number 4, case PD 2024-010 as a hold. Item number 5, case PD 2024-011 as a hold. Item number 6, case S 2024-017. Item number 7, case SUP 2024-011 as a hold. Item number 9, case Z 2024-007 as a hold. Item number 10, case MJR 2024-036. Item number 11, case MJR 2024-037. Item number 12, case MJR 2024-038 as a hold. Item number 13, case MJR 2024-039 as a hold. Item number 14, case MJR 2024-040CO as a hold. Item number 16, case PD 2024-013 as a hold. Item number 18, case RC 2024-002. Item number 19, case S 2024-026CO. Item number 20, case SUP 2024-027 as a hold. Item number 21, case SUP 2024-029 as a hold. Item number 22, case SUP 2024-031 as a hold. Item number 24, case SUP 2024-033. Item number 25, case SUP 2024-034 as a hold. Item number 26, case SUP 2024-035. And item number 17, case Z 2024-008.
Thank you again. Do I hear a second?
Second.
Okay. We have a motion. We have a second. Is there any discussion? Is there any discussion? Hearing none, I assume we're ready to vote. All in favor say aye. Aye. Those opposed, nay. Motion carries. Now we will go to Mr. Brown Gill, who will announce our regular agenda. Mr. Gill.
Item number 8, SUP 220-24022. Special use permit to allow group daycare at 5091 Quinch Road. Staff Planner Nicholas, that's pretty much it. Yeah.
Is the applicant present? Is the applicant present?
She's here.
Okay. Then give us your name and address.
My name is Yolanda Gibson, and my address is 1557 South White Station.
Okay, we will hear the case from the staff.
Good morning, Nicholas Wardrop with DPD. This is SUP 2422. It's located at 5091 Quince, and the applicant is Ms. Yolanda Gibson, who's here with us today. The request is to allow a group daycare home in the R6 district. Here's a location map. You can see where it is. It's in East Memphis. Here's a vicinity map showing where we issued notice. We issued 72 notices back in July. Here are some photos of the home in question. It is a single-family residence. We're going to come back to some design issues, but here are some site photos from Quince. Here's a site aerial. We're sort of in the middle of the block on Quince between White Station, and this is a local residential street here, Wilbeck. Here's the surrounding zoning. Predominantly is zoned R6, although there is very close by a shopping center that's zoned CMU1. Here's some surrounding land use, predominantly single-family homes, but again, a shopping center, sort of on the other side of White Station there. Okay, so this is a daycare case, and staff's main concern with this has been the vehicular safety of the existing driveway. So that driveway, as you can see, requires you to back out onto Quince, which is unsafe. And it's not just unsafe in our determination. You could not build this driveway today legally. The code prohibits driveways that require you to back onto an arterial road like Quince. So when we've been looking at this application, we really had two major goals. We would like to address that issue in a way that's permanent, right? Because you could move in that house tomorrow and you wouldn't be required to fix the driveway. So we wanted, make sure we're taking this opportunity to address that safety issue permanently, but address it permanently in a way to minimize the volume of area we'd be asking Ms. Gibson to pave, and also doesn't add paving, directly in front of the front facade of the home. And third, in a way that we can enforce easily. And this other goal we've had is, we want to ensure the structure continues to look like a residential use. If you walk by it on the street, we would like to make sure that you walk by it and you think it's a single-family home, just like every other single-family home in the neighborhood. So with that, we are recommending approval with these conditions. I believe Ms. Gibson would like to speak with you about number 1, so I'll speak on it briefly. So she does not live in this home. If she did, she would be allowed to keep 7 children there by right. We would not need a special use permit as the accessory use. So that is where that 7 number comes from. 7 has been the historic, how we have conditioned these uses in the past. Additionally, I'll say this is on an arterial road. There's no street parking. So we feel that 7 is a reasonable number of children that is in line with how the code treats similar uses, and also, is cognizant of the fact there's no street parking on Quince. No signage, we put that on every daycare to my knowledge. No more than 3 individuals who don't live on the property can be employed there. If she were living there, the code would allow her 1 individual who doesn't live on the property to be employed by the daycare. So we feel like that's a reasonable, way to allow her to staff the daycare, practically speaking, but also doesn't create the parking issue that we've mentioned. We'd like her to submit, if she's ever going to put in playground equipment or anything similar to that, to let us know. It gives her 2 years to get a CO. 6 is just a clarifier. And then the major thing is number 7. So this is our solution to the driveway issue. This condition will require her to pave some portion of the area. Let me go back to the street photo. Some portion of this area here in front of the tree to allow you to leave this driveway, back out, and exit onto Quince in a forward motion. And so this is our language on that condition, and these graphics would be included in the condition. So with that, I can take any questions.
Thank you. Do we have any questions of the staff right now? Okay, we are, just a moment. Is there any opposition in the room? Any opposition? Okay, we're ready for you to present your presentation.
Okay, so for number one, I was just concerned, and my questions was, who will I be in compliance with? Because DHS will license you for 12. But in my case, because it will be classified as group, they said 15. But I told them I would want the max to be 12. And so in this case, if their recommendation is 7, I'm asking him who would I have to make sure I'm being in compliance with? Because if it's 2 different decisions, that's a little confusing for a business owner. And everything else I can be in compliance with. Looking at the way it was just described, I was a little confused about how the driveway was needing to be constructed. I didn't realize it was near the right side of the driveway. I was thinking it was the area where the grass will be located. So being that the location is not being owned by me as it was stated, I just didn't want to have to reconstruct the whole land, which was the front of the yard, but the side is a little bit smaller. That's something I can look into. I've spoke with Mr. Nicholas about the signage, so I've gotten it cleared in the staffing. It was just the issue of the number for me.
Okay. Can someone from staff answer her question?
Regarding the number,
Right.
so again, the 7 condition, the 7 children number is historically how we have treated these uses. The UDC locally, distinguishes between 7 and 8. That's sort of the cutoff, but that you can have as a in-home daycare. We've tried our best to treat this as an in-home daycare, even though she doesn't live there. In regards to the state licensure requirements, I'm not super familiar with those.
Yeah, and if I may, I think, just to clarify, this would only allow you to have 7 children. So that is the limit that you would be able to have at this property.
Okay, so if 7 is, so I was speaking to Mr. Nicholas about this. So if I do it, I go, let me rephrase that. So if I'm listening to what you're saying about the 7, but if there's another rule according to Department of Human Services, which make it seem like they're not on the same court as the city, then that's like a conflict of interest because.
Well, they may allow 12, but
Right.
this would only allow 7,
So that's why I was confused.
Right,
when
well,
speaking with him about who
correct.
would you be in compliance with? Would I do what they're saying or the
You would be in
city?
compliance with them as well if you only had 7. So you'd be in compliance, but you could only have 7 per this. So you would be in compliance with both.
Okay, so if I make the changes that are being asked, would it allow the 12 or is still gonna be the 7 regardless?
7.
Okay, so can I get an explanation as to why it's topped out at the 7? If it's strictly located for a business for that purposes?
It's actually residentially zoned, and I think that the presentation that Mr.
I'm sorry.
Wardrobe, it's residentially zoned.
Uh-huh.
And so I think the presentation that Mr. Wardrobe presented about why we are limiting at 7 was clear. So that's what this would allow, is the 7 children.
Okay.
And it would be in compliance with the state as well.
Okay.
Okay, board members, do you have any questions? Okay, are you satisfied with the explanation or?
I mean, it's self-explanatory, it's not gonna be changed, so I don't have a choice but to agree with it, and it'll just be my decision whether I will proceed or not with it or not, or proceed with the business or leave it alone.
Okay. All right, if there are no more questions, we're gonna close the public portion of this meeting.
So I'm free to leave, or do I need to
No,
stay?
we're going to vote on whether to approve
Okay,
the case.
Yes,
At
ma'am.
this point, we are waiting for a motion.
okay, thank you.
Motion to approve SUP 2024-022.
Second.
We have a motion, we have a second. Is there any discussion? Any discussion? Okay, hearing none, I assume we're ready to vote. All in favor say aye. Aye. Those opposed, nay. Motion carries. So, it has been approved. It's up to you whether you want to move forward.
Okay, thank you. So do I need to get with Mr. Nicholas or am I okay to go?
Okay, thank you. You can go.
Okay, thank you. Y'all have
Item,
Next case.
next case, item number PD 2024-012, Core City Amendment to PD 2020-015 to include more land and changes in uses located at 2101 Central Avenue.
Okay, we'll hear from the applicant, name and address.
Josh Whitehead, 275 Jefferson.
Thank you. Is there any opposition? Okay, we're hearing the case. Staff member, we're ready.
Chloe Christian, staff planner with DPD, presenting case number PD 2024-012. The applicant is Cooper Holdings Properties, represented by Josh Whitehead, and they're here with us today. And the location is 2101 Central Avenue. And this is an amendment to a previously approved plan development to include some additional land and some changes in the use. It's just for a location map of the property. It's located in the Cooper Young area, and we sent out 176 notices in August. It's currently zoned residential single-family 6 and partially in the Cooper Young Historic District, and the land use designation is currently industrial and vacant. Here are some photos of the subject property, partially located on the old Albert Cook's plumbing site. Some more site photos. And here is the concept plan that was proposed. This is the lower level of the plan. You can see the parking garage fronting York Avenue and the surface parking lot along York as well. There are some townhouses proposed in the corner along here, as well as multifamily leasing and amenity space along Central. And the most notable change from the previously approved plan is the inclusion of a 7-story hotel with a restaurant space along York and Cooper here. And here's the upper concept plan. Just as a refresher, this is what the previously approved concept plan was. It had 7 buildings of various heights. So this change actually reflects a significant decrease in the amount of units and retail space that was previously presented. Here are the landscape plans provided. The upper level as well with a parking chart is here. And the concept elevations. There were 2 separate 3.0 consistency analysis pulled, one for the hotel and then one for the multifamily. And in short, both uses were found to be generally consistent with the 3.0 plan. And so in conclusion, this plan development or a similar plan development was previously approved back in 2021 for the Central Yards plan development. And this application has a few changes, including increase in land use and including a hotel. And generally, staff does find that this amendment is an appropriate use that's compatible with the Cooper Young area, citing the Memphian Hotel not too far away. Also on Cooper, staff finds that this is an appropriate use of the property. However, regarding the conditions, there are some changes that staff is recommending, most notably requiring 25% active ground floor space, such as amenity or multifamily residential space on the ground floor parking lot of York and Cooper Avenue. as well as increased transparency on the northern elevation of the hotel on Central. And here is a alternate building configuration prepared by staff. The staff prepared version is on the left-hand side here. We would propose including building frontage on both Central and York. The sketch prepared by the applicant does not currently have any pedestrian accessible space along this area of York Avenue. Staff also would encourage townhomes to fully front this southern portion of York as well, as the current version includes 3 townhomes that have no actual street frontage and face the parking lot. So staff is recommending approval with revisions to the outline plan conditions, and they can be found on pages 21 through 24 of the staff report. And that concludes my presentation, but I'm happy to answer any questions. Thank you.
Thank you. Do we have any questions of Ms. Christian before we go on to the applicant? Okay, we're ready for you.
Thank you, Madam Chair, members of the board. Again, Josh Whitehead, 275 Jefferson. First and foremost, thank you to Chloe. We've had a few last-minute revisions. Those are included in a memo that's about to be disseminated by Mr. Lewis. As a nearby resident to this development, what excites me about it is the lower intensity involved as compared to the previous proposal. We are, and this goes to one of our conditions that we're seeking to amend, we're going to have very little, if not any, retail space, because we feel that the retail near the intersection of Central and Cooper that's existing needs residents to support it and not competing retail space to cannibalize it. With that, I'll briefly go over these, and I believe we're in agreement with all of them. These are found on pages 21 through 27 of your staff report, the conditions of approval. And I do want to point out that the conditions that you find on those pages in black typeface are not only the ones that we proposed when we filed this application, but also the product of interactions we've had with neighboring property owners and neighborhood associations. You may find, and you may recall at the tail end of your staff report on page 51, there was a letter from the Cooper Young Community Association recommending several conditions. We have incorporated those conditions from the neighborhood association into our conditions, and those are in black. So really what we're looking at is the red conditions. Those were the specific conditions offered by OPD. And I'm going to introduce Victor Buchholz with LRK and Chance Carlisle with the development group in a moment. But very briefly, the first one deals with the north elevation of the hotel, that staff would like a 30% transparency. We have fire code issues with that, but nevertheless, we believe there are other ways to provide architectural interest to that facade. Number 2, we are in agreement with, but I would like to make one amendment to the pass out you just received. This is Roman numeral 4, letter I. What we are offering and what staff has agreed to is providing 25% active ground space at the corners of our North-South Drive and Central and the North-South Drive and York. So we are in agreement on that, and we are in agreement on the last one as listed in this memo, 4K, that limits the amount of fencing throughout the development. With regard to the first one, again, I'd like to introduce Mr. Buchholz with LRK, one of our architects, who's going to speak to the transparency on the hotel.
Morning, Victor Buchholz, 50 South B.B. King Boulevard with LRK Architects. So relative to this condition, we definitely appreciate staff's comments and recognize that that's an important facade, and as it faces north and has as the upper left image shows, has some visibility there. And we really, our only exception is just the percentage, just trying to lock into a percentage this early. And so we're, part of what gets tricky about the transparency, there's sort of 2 things going on, of course. The lower half of the building, as you can see there, actually faces the service alley of the buildings that face Central. And so the views in there, obviously aren't really great. It's kind of just the back of house of the alley and everything. And in the upper levels, we really just would like to have flexibility as we work with, again, because we're sort of early in the building design, working with, say, the hotel brand. Hotel brands, typically, the way those unit keys work, they don't typically like to put a lot of windows in those side. You can imagine hotel rooms that have a bedside and then a TV side. And so being restricted to a certain percentage, we definitely are endeavoring to add transparency there and add architectural and visual interest because we appreciate that view and how prominent it is. And, are definitely committed to doing that. Through materiality, there could be a really great environmental graphic signage there. Opportunity as you're kind of coming down Cooper to create an icon at the end of that building. And so we definitely endeavor to do that and are committed to that. We just have trouble, again, just the percentage. We just tough to lock in on at this early stage at that higher percentage. So that's where we're at on that condition.
Give us your name and address.
Yes, ma'am. Chance Carlisle, 1 Dr. Martin Luther King Avenue, Suite 130. Good morning. Let's see if we get this thing to stay. Josh. Well, okay. There we go. Someone on City Council needs to fix that. Good morning. We are thrilled to be here today to talk about the redevelopment plans for, I guess you'd call this Cooper Young neighborhood. Obviously, the Apple Cook site has been long in the coming. It's been one of the most prominent sites to be redeveloped for a while. I think Scott Fleming and the prior ownership did an excellent job looking at a potential master plan, but when we acquired the property in February, March of this year, we found a couple of deficiencies that we sort of corrected with this plan. The most important one being, as Josh said, was, how much more retail do you want to dump in that corridor? And how much of a parking congestion do you really want to have? And then how can we alleviate that by also being terrific neighbors? And so we looked at two things that we thought would elevate the neighborhood. One is, one of the best performing hotels in the city is the Memphian. Clearly, there's a need for incremental hotel rooms in Midtown and supporting Liberty Park. And so adding a hotel component, a prominent hotel component that's like now 3 blocks from Liberty Bowl Stadium was a huge unlock. And the second was de-densifying the uses on multifamily. And so we're looking at really multifamily and, that neighborhood is not just one of the most desirable places to live, it is one of the most housing constrained neighborhoods. And so that was sort of driving the designs. And then we wanted to transition back into a more residential feel, which was the purpose of the townhomes. Again, there is a lot of families that would be looking for townhomes to rent in that neighborhood. There's a development just to the east of it does extremely well, and the west. So I think the only thing that we have on the staff report that was just a comment I'll make, almost every time you do townhomes, national developer standards, you can look through the ULI guidelines, et cetera. You don't really want more than 7 townhomes in a row, which is why we stack 7, 3, and 3. And then the other thing is the parking lot that services the hotel component really does want to be linear and gated and fenced. We all know that hotels are prominently one of the most sought after high crime spots because we don't allow guns in hotels, so people leave their guns in their cars, therefore they have car break-ins, so securing that lot is of high concern for us and having 24/7 eyes on it. Other than that, we're thrilled to get started and look forward to a positive recommendation from the board. Thanks.
Thank you. Do we have anyone else speaking? We have a Mr. Graham. Was that, okay. In support of, give us your name and address, please.
I'm Bo Graham at 2025 Harvard Avenue. We have a distribution facility at the end of 2025 York. We have worked with David Lewis to protect our ingress, egress, and we're in support.
Okay, thank you. Do we have any questions? Okay, Mr. Whitehead, I'm sorry.
And just one more point, I wanted to just reiterate on the memo that I passed out. There is one amendment on 4I, the middle condition. Staff and we have agreed to change the number 75% to 25%, and change the word, I think, or to and. And that would require both 25% along Central and, rather than or, 25% along York. So I do want to make that clarification. And then one final point on the transparency. We are going to go to the Downtown Memphis Commission's Design Review Board. So the way we see this approval is more about the bulk and the uses, and then the design elements, the very specific design elements, including transparency, would be handled by that body. With that, we're available for any questions.
Any questions?
Yes, I have one. Mr. Whitehead, how many, maybe it was in there and I just didn't catch it, how many rooms, the hotel?
125.
125, okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Any further questions?
Just a quick, do you know what the flag is, and is it a conventional hotel or extended stay?
It's going to be a similar hotel as the Memphian, so not extended stay.
Gotcha.
Any further questions? Okay, thank you, Mr. Whitehead.
Madam Chair, if I may,
Before-
Ms. Christian and I just spoke, and we appreciate the applicant's discussion about the north side of the hotel. And I think at this point, we're good to just drop that condition and continue to work with them for that percentage of transparency. So we're good with that, and I appreciate the 25% on each of the street frontages. So I think with that, we appreciate them working with us and would be agreeable to that.
Okay, so before I close the public portion of the meeting, you're amenable to this, so when we read it, we will read it as amended?
Correct.
Okay, thank you. All right, hearing no other questions, I'm going to close the public portion of the meeting. And Mr. Gill, if you would read that.
Sure.
And add as amended.
Move to approve PD 2024-012 as amended.
Second.
Okay, is there any discussion amongst our board members?
I would like to say something. I'm impressed by the whole team that there are not 100 people here from Midtown that want to line up and talk about this project. That's pretty impressive. Because we've all been through plenty of Midtown developments. So I just want to say I applaud you guys as a team made this happen.
Okay. Any further discussion? Okay, hearing none, I assume we're ready to vote. All in favor say aye. Aye. Those opposed, nay. Motion carries. Thank you. We're ready for our next case, Mr. Gill.
Item number 17, PD 2024-014, East Amendment to PD 2023-021 to include more land and changes in uses located at 5111 Sanderlin Road.
Mr. Whitehead,
Josh Whitehead, 275 Jefferson.
thank you. We're ready for the staff. Is there any opposition, by the way? Okay, we're ready for staff report.
Good morning. I'm Latanya Hull from DPD, presenting case PD 2024-014. The applicant is RCM Defco LLC, Mr. David Lewis, and the representative is Mr. Josh Whitehead of Whitehead Law. The location, there are multiple locations. The primary location is 5111 Sanderlin Avenue, and the request is to amend PD 2024-14 to include more land and changes in use. The location is in Mid-City. The vicinity map is to your right. 262 notices were mailed on August 19, 2024. This is your zoning. The subject property has multiple locations. The zonings are R10, residential work, CMU 1 and CMU 3. The land use map is to your right. This is an area view of the subject property. And these are site photos. This amendment to PD 2023-21, I believe there was an error on the cover page. The original approved PD from 23 had one major area, and that's currently area A and B. So this is a view of that particular area that was previously approved. These are site photos of one of the additional areas, areas C and D, which are near the corner of South White Station Road and Willis Drive. So the first photo is looking from South White Station Road east toward those two parts of the development. And the two photos to your right are looking from Willis Drive at the two parcels. So the one at the top is Area C, and it is currently in office space. And the one below is Area D, which is a parking lot that is utilized by the church, or was utilized by the church across the street. These photos are of Area E and F, which were added with this one. To the left, that is the Area E, two views, and then we have Area F to your right. The applicant presented two concept plans for this. This is concept plan A. The ground floors are to the left and your upper floors are to the right. This is a mix of retail space, multi-family spaces as well, and hotels primarily. Some of the major differences between the originally approved PD included the reduction in intensity by removing some of the townhouses that were in the previous one and a reconfiguration of the space. This is concept plan B. The major difference between concept plan A and B are the location of the drive. The previous plan had the drive that kind of turned. It wasn't a straight through the development, but concept B plan runs the access point, the major drive, straight from Sunderland Avenue through to Willis Drive. Here's a landscape plan that was provided by the applicant with important information about the project, including the uses, the parking requirements, and the parking that's been provided. And you have a good picture here of what the uses are as well. According to Memphis 3.0, this development is consistent with future goals and land use development. It is consistent with objective 1 through 3. It develops strategies that reduce blight and vacancy. And it is located in the East Planning District, which prioritizes building connections between neighborhoods, including collaboration among neighborhood associations and government entities. In conclusion, the applicant is requesting an amendment to PD 2023-021. It's just a new mixed-use plan development consisting of multifamily office, retail, hotel, and structured parking uses located at the previous Racquet Club of Memphis site on Sunderland Avenue, which was approved by the Land Use Development Board in 2023. The amendment reduces the intensity of the development in the original PD, which is areas A and B, by removing some multifamily in favor of more retail and restaurants, and reconfigures the building on the site. It also adds properties to the development, areas C through F, on the north and south sides of Willis Drive, west of South White Station Road, and on the north side of Brookhaven Circle. Staff agrees that the proposed plan development as amended is appropriate for the use. The proposed concept would further complement the range of development in the area and help to revitalize a vacant eyesore. However, staff believes that the excessive parking between the buildings and the streets is not the most desirable design for the area and recommends prohibiting parking between the public right-of-ways and the buildings. The applicant has added gates and barriers at two access points in Area A and proposed fencing along the perimeter of the site. That is different than what was previously approved. Staff has recommended conditions prohibiting fencing, except fencing included in buffers along the property line between abutting uses. Additional recommendations from our Office of Comprehensive Planning and Resiliency have been made to address connectivity issues between the uses as well as to address flooding risks on the site, which is a sensitive drainage area. Concerns were received from the public regarding traffic flow and congestion on Willis Drive and Brookhaven Circle, which shall be addressed in the traffic study. The project would not have a substantial or undue harm on the adjacent properties, the character of the neighborhood, traffic conditions, parking, utility, and other matters affecting the public health, safety, and general welfare. In regards to the parking specifically that we're prohibiting, the previous PD did not have parking between the streets and the buildings. There were buildings in those areas. And the current version has quite a bit of parking along Sanderland. So on your screen to the right, there's a lot of parking here in this orange area around Sanderland. And the new additional sections of C and D has a parking lot, the existing parking lot that's there now, and then they propose future development. What staff has prepared is an alternative configuration of the buildings that reduces the amount of parking between the streets and the public right-of-way, the public right-of-way in buildings. We have moved these particular spots, they're now along Sanderland, and suggested moving them in the rear of that event space so that they're not right up against the street. Additionally, something similar here for section C. When this is redeveloped, we propose that instead of having the parking in area D, that parking is moved inward to area C, and any buildings that are configured on the site be in the front so that any parking cannot be seen in the street. So we think that would be a better design visibly for the community. Additionally, we prohibited fencing as well as gates that are proposed in the development. I understand the need for security in the area, but the gates that are being proposed and the guard shack that are being proposed are on the main entrances to the development. So right here on Sanderland and I believe also here off Willis Drive, there's proposal of gates, if I'm not mistaken. We prefer not to have those gates on the main entrances. If there's concern with security for vehicles at night, we ask that the team consider moving those gates to those areas that are most sensitive to crime. So if they're trying to protect the multifamily uses that are here and here, to figure out a way to provide the gates closer to those uses rather than on the main entrances into the development. Staff recommends approval with revisions to the outline plan conditions, which are in your staff report on page 25 through 37. That concludes my presentation. I'm happy to answer questions.
Do we have any questions of Ms. Hull before the? Yes, Mr. Winter.
Good morning. 2 questions. Are the internal drives that you were just talking about proposed to be public or private?
I believe they're private drives. Yes.
Okay, thanks. And then I know when the applicant comes, I might want to hear more about traffic on Wheelus.
We've received multiple concerns about the potential traffic along Willis Drive and Brookhaven Circle.
Okay, thank you. All right, we're ready for your presentation from the applicant.
Thank you, Madam Chair, members of the board. Again, Josh Whitehead. And also thank you, Ms. Hull. This has been a big project that has had a lot of moving pieces. Like our Cooper PD, the previous case, we had a very robust and perhaps the most heavily participated neighborhood meeting in my experience. And a lot of the conditions that you find in your staff report, again, are not just the conditions that we proposed a month ago when we filed this application, but the product of a lot of those conversations, both during the meeting and after the meeting. And you'll find on page 34 and then on page 35, the conditions I'd like to draw your attention to. Those are indeed the conditions that Ms. Hull mentioned that are contested. The good news is they're in red, so they are easy to find on pages 34 and 35. Many of the conditions proposed by staff either are either frustrate or are in direct conflict with some of the conditions that we hammered out with the neighbors. And I think those fall in 2 different categories. Number one, security with regard to the fencing along Sanderland and with regard to the building placement. On the latter, and I'm going to hand the floor over to Mr. Carlisle again to further flesh those out, but on the latter, on the building placement, I'd like to remind the board that the number one rule for planned developments is that they be compatible with their surroundings. And we believe, while there are parts of the city where buildings built up to the street are appropriate, we feel that in this part of East Memphis, we're proposing a somewhat suburban, somewhat urban design, kind of a hybrid design that is truly compatible with the Racquet Club to the north, Racquet Club Plaza to the north, and some of the shopping centers to our west and south. Now I'm going to turn the floor over to Mr. Carlisle to speak to 3B, and these are again in red. 3B, beginning with 3B, speaks to the fencing along Sanderland, and then he'll also talk about the building placement.
Hi, Chance Carlisle, 1 Dr. Martin Luther King, Suite 130. Wow, all right, I feel like I've been here a few times on the Racquet Club. We acquired the property in late 2020s. 4 years later, I am still, let's just say, driving my architects absolutely crazy because we haven't gotten this thing right yet. One of the things that we are trying to do is build the first mid-rise, potentially high-rise apartment complex in the city in, 30 plus years. Another one that we're trying to do is add retail and other uses for the general public in a truly planned mixed-use development that has a hotel component that's 24/7 and a retail component that certainly is not 24/7. Obviously, residents, whether in the multifamily or the age-restricted, have to come and go. And it has been our experience that as we look at these developments, and one of the biggest unlocks that I made was to, again, separate the uses and de-densify it. The prior program just had too much program. And I'll get to Brookhaven Circle and Willis here in a second, but when look, we're pretty darn good to know what we need to do for the hotels and multifamily. And so we brought be in the garage in the garage. The number one problem I have with the Landing residence is it's a mixed-use garage financed by Downtown Parking Authority that has hotel guests. Hotel guests and residents don't work because, again, hotel guests and hotels are more frequently targeted for criminal activity. We got rid of that problem at the Oliver, which only has resident parking, and to say it makes a huge difference, it makes a huge freaking difference. To the hotel, again, coming off of Wheelus, you have the hotel right there. You're going to be in and out of the lot. And then the question is, well, what hours and how do you secure or not secure the retail? Most of that is, restaurants, spas, beauty stuff, operations 7 to 10, 7 to 11. There's no reason for people to be milling about what is like a public park in the sense of the event space at 10, 11, 1, 2, 3 o'clock in the morning. So how do you safely secure, lock it up, make it an amenity, and then unlock it? Again, if you think about this as sort of one master development and sort of a homeowners association, we'll have joint security, joint close, we'll have community rules. And that's the reasoning behind how we've approached. We want during the day people to easily pull off Sanderland, park, have their retail experience, go to the restaurants, get on about their day. The property that is the surface parking adjacent to the Lexington is deed restricted. And so you basically have a couple of choices. You can do townhomes, you can do surface parking, or you can do retail, where there's no way we could put that much 3 acres of retail on that without more parking, which would have been structured garages, et cetera, which again gets back into mixed uses that people won't do. Taking a minute and going over to Willis and Brookhaven, look, I've been going to Brookhaven ever since I was, young. Brookhaven's always been a disaster. Parking's always been a nightmare. If land use control doesn't want to break through Brookhaven Circle to Wheelis, it's not a hill I'm going to die on. I'm going to tell you, every business owner in Brookhaven would love to see it. Being able to walk from our hotels to Brookhaven Circle to go to the restaurants, take a golf cart, truly use that, not having to go over and be a squatter at the clock tower and walk across, is a huge unlock for everybody. Maybe one day we convince the city to put a light at, back and forth at whether or not we get a light at Willis or not, if we need it. But I look at that as a huge amenity to sort of the overall super block. We paid a lot of money for the land. If you guys say you don't want it, I could care less. But I think it's a huge win. Will businesses on Wheelis be impacted? I'd say they're, again, major beneficiaries, not adversely impacted by having more connectivity to the entire region and people having an outflow on White Station, not having to go and back to Poplar every single time. So I guess I can leave it there. Is there anything else I need to? Josh can cover a few more things. Appreciate it. And any questions, happy to answer them.
Thank you. Any questions?
Yes. Mr. Carlisle, I don't know if you said this or not. Are the gate operating hours, what is that like?
We're gonna set it according to the retail uses. I mean, there's no reason to have the gates open at 2 o'clock in the morning, for example. The residential gates would always be 24/7, 365. You're a resident pass. If you say, okay, what if I'm a resident guest? They can buzz you in, or you'll go to the doorman, which you'll be in the front of the building and go through there as a guest. So everything that we've done is designed to make it super simple for the consumer and the customer, whether you're a resident or whether or not you're visiting the retail. We want to be able to load people in and out, make it super crystal clear. It's why the thing's literally designed as a square. Pretty easy to figure out how you're going to navigate it. And yeah, I mean, I've spent more time trying to make sure that we got this right than rush it, which is why I've literally driven everyone crazy. I mean, we've redesigned this thing maybe 7-8 times. And I finally got to where I think this is by far the best plan that we've come up with.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And Madam Chair, one last point on Wheelis. We're not sure our traffic study will warrant a signal at Wheelis and White Station, but we are advocating for a traffic signal at Wheelis and White Station, number one. Number two, that means that we will improve Wheelis at least along our frontage, which is roughly 200 feet, that will allow for a left and a right queuing lane for eastbound Wheelis. And number three, between our driveway to Brookhaven Circle and our driveway from the Racket Club property to Wheelis, we are going to construct a pathway. It probably won't be a traditional sidewalk that's 15 feet off the edge of pavement. It'll probably have a asphalt curbing and then an extension, because that we have to work within the existing right-of-way and not obtain easements from our business owners along there. But we will have an opportunity for pedestrians to get off of the road between our area B, I guess, and our area E. So I did want to point that out.
Thank you. Okay, staff, since you're not quite together, what do we do on this?
I believe that you would deliberate and just decide which, conditions that we have recommended amendments to, if you agree or not,
So we vote on it as is?
Well, we're going to discuss.
Oh, we're going to discuss, okay, all right. Okay.
Hear the opposition.
There's no opposition. There's no opposition, right? Okay, so we're gonna close the public portion of of this meeting, and we are ready to get a motion.
Move to approve PD 2024-014 East, amendment to the PD 2023-021 to include more land and changes to uses located at 5111 Sanderlin Road.
Second.
Okay,
I'd like to say a few things, if y'all are okay with it. I attended the neighborhood meeting for this project. I was surprised by the amount of effort that the team went to and the amount of discussion about safety and security. As a developer, it's something that I don't hear developers talk enough about, including myself. We don't tend to think about security from a design point of view, from kind of a ground up perspective. You tend to react to security instead of building it in day one. And unfortunately, we live in a town that we need to be thinking about it from day one. And I was surprised with the folks there, and not only with the neighbors there, but also the development team, how much they discuss security and how the design of security was fundamental to the whole project. So it was kind of led by security. So that was interesting to me. I don't mind the surface parking. Retail, Josh Pogue is right. Retail in Memphis does not work without surface parking. Nobody in Memphis wants to park in a parking garage to go to your restaurant, to go to Nothing But Cakes, to go into a retailer. We are a low density city, and we like parking at the front door. We like seeing if there's parking from the right of way. Women feel safer when they can see the parking and see the front door. They don't feel comfortable driving into a parking garage, going down an elevator or stairs, enclosed stairs, and they just won't go to those retailers. I'm impressed again that the opposition is not here. There was a ton of people at the neighborhood meeting. They had very informed questions, and I'm shocked that they're not here to oppose. Fourth, I like the Brookhaven Circle cut through. It's going to help every owner on Brookhaven. The Andrew Michael guys, Andy and Mike, have an enormous parking problem on Sanderlin. Brookhaven Pub has an enormous problem. There are plenty of other office/retail users that need another way out of Brookhaven. So I think that cut through is very necessary. And then lastly, I think that the traffic on Wheelus will be negligible. I would love to see a light at Wheelus, a signal at Wheelus, but I built a crosswalk across there and hoping people would use it and come into the super block, but they really don't. And I think if we had a signal there, ultimately the city decided to do that, not based on this project. I don't hinge the two. The city needs to do that. But I would love to see that long term. But I don't think there'll be a traffic issue on Wheelus long term because it's so much easier to go to Sanderlin and go to the two signals that connect Mendenhall and White Station. Does that make sense? So you're not going to voluntarily go to Wheelus when you can go to Sanderlin and access two signals. Those are my 5 points.
Anybody else?
Yes. First of all,
we have
Mr. Carlisle, I applaud you for the multiple developments you've done throughout the city. Good job on that. Good job on putting your money where your mouth is and actually taking control and uplifting several neighborhoods. And I visited some of your properties before. On this development, I was a little bit apprehensive on the gates. However, hearing with the retail component, it just was kind of what's going on, but you clarified that, and definitely it makes sense for the retailers in the community also have that kind of security. So for that, I am for this project.
Ms. O'Connor?
Yeah, I would echo everything that my co-members have said, and I would like to emphasize the idea of creating more walkable corridors. So the idea of the hotel being able to walk to Brookhaven Circle takes more vehicles off the road. It lessens the parking issues. So I think that was very well thought out. So I'm fully in support of what the applicant is proposing.
Yes, Mr. Winters?
Thank you. I think all all you guys know I'm pretty familiar with this block. I'm here every day. I think what y'all proposed makes a lot of sense. I appreciate, Mr. Whitehead, your comments about Wheeless Drive. I do have some concerns about the traffic, and it's unimproved. There's no curb, no gutter. I do have a question for staff. Is that addressed in the conditions, the improvements on Wheeless, or is that something we'll find out through traffic study?
So engineering is going to require a traffic assessment, but we did not condition any improvements on any particular street.
Okay, that's the only thing I'm, curious about. I do agree with the connection to Brookhaven. I think that makes a lot of sense. I think you maybe make a good point about improving pedestrian access. I also would love to see a light at Wheeless if it's needed. I think it's a great plan to bring some density to the neighborhood. I definitely agree with pedestrian traffic. And I don't feel as bad about Brookhaven as long as the traffic concerns are addressed through the study. So,
I will just comment that the result of the complaints about Brookhaven Circle, the public brought up the fact that there was a study done a few years ago on Brookhaven Circle. So I did contact our engineering department, and I think that person is going to request that they reevaluate that study and the option of turning Brookhaven Circle into a one-way as opposed to the two-way now. So that's if that person does that, then we'll get a chance to sort of revisit that issue on Brookhaven specifically.
that's a great point. I think this is definitely consistent with the idea that improving connectivity, pedestrian especially, on that big block it's consistent with that goal for sure.
Any further discussion?
Yes. Good project, but help me with one thing, and maybe I need to ask some staff. I thought one of you all's requested modifications was on Sanderland, and I've not heard that addressed really. With that security or guard shack being right at the street, can you help me through that?
Yes, sir. We were recommending, so this parking right here in front of the building on Sanderland, as well as there's a guard shack here, and there are those gates. And we were just recommending that those parking spots be relocated so they're not off of Sanderland. And we were asking that the gates not be located in the primary access points, which is here on Sanderland and here on Willis Drive. The guard shack is there. We didn't condition that they could not have the guard shack. It's just the gates and the fencing and the parking that we were concerned about.
Okay, so, Ms. Carlisle or Whitehead, can you address that one? That's the only.
We'll have to open the public portion. We'll have to open the public portion back up. You're making a motion.
I move that we open it up. I have a question, or if one of our folk can answer that, we don't have to open it back up.
I'll second open it back up. That's
okay.
Fine. Second.
All right, so it's been moved and second.
Are there any objections?
So I think it's really important to understand who's using what and when. So like we see all of the residents. So if you think of the to the left of Sanderland, the first, is predominantly only going to be used by residents coming down that road that you see. So when you get to the second entrance, which is where the boxes and the parking off of Sanderland, that is almost entirely retail, right? So you're coming off Sanderland, you're going to the restaurants and the shops that are basically lining the parking to the east and west. You see the event lawn, and you come around off that road, and then you get into sort of the retail bay parking, which is basically one big rectangle. It is by far the most efficient, is the easiest. We've spent a lot of time looking at this, and imagine, again, having 50, 60 kids playing in the event lawn. You do not want cars speeding through there. You do not want to have to put up big fencing. You want it to be a very calm, line of sight, navigable rectangle, which is what it is. Coming off of Wheeless, that'll be predominantly hotel traffic and then through traffic for the retail. So again, the Wheeless gate, you don't really have to have. If you wanted to lock down the campus for whatever security breach, you can now. You can also do that by automatic bollards. I mean, there's a lot of different ways that you can get to that solution. But what's not gated on the retail side is that parking, and you're always going to have to provide access to and from the hotel. So there will always be a way in and out because you have 24/7, 365. It's just when and where and how. So again,
was designed to save you money. So you get high school.
I like saving money. But that's it. So like, if you're a resident, you'll have 365, but like, there's no point for anyone to be down the first road. If it's the retail and it's closed, you can close those entrances and secure it, great. There's no reason to be there. If you're the hotel, you're coming off Wheelus, and you'll still be able to exit. So hopefully that explains it. Look, and I don't mean to sound so absolutist, but the way staff did the parking and the requirements, particularly on Hotel B, the other lot, and in between the buildings, it just doesn't work. I mean, we'll have to go back to the drawing board and start over. This gives you the best thing. And I want to make one more point. It is impossible in these drawings to show the level of landscaping, lighting, safety, security, but like, you can't really tell, but that parking lot, at our request and our expense, because of our neighbors to the Lexington, has a whole string of canopy of lights, like Christmas lights, you know what I'm saying, going over it. We've put an arbor kind of on it. The barrier that you think would traditionally be like a fence is going to be, if you've ever been out to like Beverly Hills or California, you see this huge line of shrubbery that, is almost impenetrable, of greenscaping. I mean, it's going to be awesome, but it is designed to hide some of the less attractive parts of the site, surface parking being one of them, just like a structured garage being one of them. But also, you want the navigation of the site to be like, I don't want to call it brain dead, but you want it to be very, very crystal clear. So that's why we did everything. If you go back one more to the landscape plan that was ours on the event lawn, I mean, just again, imagine 20, 30, 40, 50, 60 kids running around that event lawn going crazy while their parents have an ice cream cone or a glass of wine. I mean, that's what that thing's designed for. So you want all of your vehicle parking, traffic, et cetera, opposite that. But you still have to access the site and you still have to do it. So again, with retail on both sides of the event lawn, I mean, it works as a square. I mean, it really does a lot of multiple levels of good for the site.
Thank you. Any further questions? Okay, I'm going to reclose the public portion of the meeting again.
Motion to approve PD 2024-014 East. Amendment to PD 2023-021 to include more land and change to uses located at 5111 Center Road.
Second. Do I hear somebody?
I'm comfortable with voting on it.
Somebody got to move.
Oh, second, sorry. We need a second.
Did somebody move? Somebody has to move. He just asked for a motion. Okay.
Move to second, yeah.
Okay, then we have a second. Is there any discussion?
I'm comfortable with the applicant's amendment, or suggested amendment to staff's suggestion for the amended conditions. So I think that's really what's at stake here.
I agree with Brown.
Okay, we want to amend as per staff recommendations. Is that what I'm hearing?
No, per the applicant's recommendation.
Per the applicant's recommendation. Okay. Everybody with that?
Yes.
Okay.
Would it be helpful just to, I mean, I don't know if it sounds like everybody's good. I don't know if you wanted to go through the conditions that we have up here and so that everybody's clear on them, but.
Yeah. Sure.
So as Mr. White had said, in red, strike through, or red, bold, that was what we had recommended. And so I think that the consensus is, well, what we can vote on is actually striking all of those, but just to be clear, I think it'd be helpful just to go through each of them. So the first one is this G, and it's about the gates and fencing, and so B, okay, I'm sorry. One thing I did want to note, and just for the applicant, I think some of the discussion, we were unclear where the gates and fencing are because they're actually not shown on the plans. So I think that would be something that would be helpful as we move to council for us to understand. There may be some that are not where we thought they were. So I think that would be helpful. We did need a little bit more time on this one. It's pretty complex, but we agreed to just try to get it forward. So we have time before council. So we would actually keep item B. And then if you go down again, so parking is prohibited between the public rights of way and the buildings. So we would strike that.
Correct.
Yeah. And then we would keep D, which is allowing the parking between the buildings and the right-of-way. And is there more?
So D for that one was suggesting that if Area D does not have a building on it, it would be utilized for parking. So we're saying we want to allow D to be utilized for parking, if applicable.
So if it's ever developed, then they would keep the parking lot that's along White Station. So, and then we would strike the added red there. So we would keep the strike through and strike the red below, and then I think that's it. Is that correct? That's all?
I have a question.
So we would take out M about the fencing and gates. And I think maybe that's it. Can you scroll down and see?
I think that's it.
Okay.
Okay, go back up to B. In red. Are you B? As in boy. Okay, are you striking all that out?
No, we're going to
We're keeping it.
We would keep it.
You keeping it?
So we're voting to keep the applicant's version of the outline plan and to not approve the staff's recommended changes.
All right.
For everything, right? So the gates are pencil. Okay.
Yeah.
Is that
Yeah.
So it'd be as amended. Yeah.
okay?
As amended.
Are we ready to vote? Any further discussion? Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Those opposed? Motion carries. Number 23.
Item number 23, SUP 2024-032, Core City, special use permit to allow administrative offices and resource center for medical services located at 681 Philadelphia Street.
Is the applicant present?
Yes, ma'am. Josh Whitehead,
Mr.
275
Whitehead.
Jefferson. But this presentation will be given by my colleague, Milos Mikic.
Okay.
Leave some business.
There is opposition. Okay, so we'll go ahead and hear the case.
All right, good morning, I'm sorry. Chloe Christian with DPD, presenting SUP 2024-032. The applicant is present with us today, Ms. Karen Pease, represented by Milos and the Whitehead Group. The location is actually various properties along Philadelphia Street and New York Street, and this is a special use permit to allow for administrative offices and a resource center for medical services for the Well Child, Inc. The subject property is indicated by the pink circle on this map. It is actually 7 different residential style properties and a vacant lot that's used as a neighborhood garden right above, I believe, Cooper Street. Here is a zoning map and land use map of the property. It's zoned residential urban 3, however, it is abutting the employment district to the west here. Here are some site photos of the buildings, including the neighborhood garden on New York Street here. And here is a plan provided by the applicant. So A similar special use permit was approved in 2021 for essentially the same thing, and those sites are indicated by the light green, and the dark green indicates additional sites that are going to be included in this special use permit. And for the consistency analysis, this proposal was found to be consistent with the 3.0 plan. So in conclusion, this is a new special use permit to include additional properties that were previously approved by City Council in April 2021. That permit has since been deemed expired since there have been no activity on Acela or the registers for those sites. So this special use permit will kind of loop everything else in and approve the use. Over the past years, one of the properties has burned down and that lot is currently vacant and being used for parking. So one of the conditions that staff will be proposing would be that any parking for this use would happen behind the front building facade and be screened from public view, as this area is predominantly residential. However, this use will not have any substantial detriment to the public good or impair the intent of the UDC, and the development will be in keeping with the residential nature of the area. So, like I said, staff is recommending approval with a few conditions regarding maintaining the residential form and structure of the homes, regarding parking and ensuring that the buildings adhere to the Midtown overlay regulations, and that the trash disposal will be of residential style and just essentially not contributing any negative effects to the area. And that concludes my presentation. Thank you.
Thank you. Any questions of Ms. Christian right now? Okay. We're ready for your presentation. Please give us your name and address, sir.
Mil Shmikic, 275 Jefferson Avenue, Memphis, Tennessee, 38103.
Thank you.
While they're getting that set up, just wanted to thank Chloe for working with us on this. And not only is Josh not presenting, but we are accepting all the conditions. So just to kind of mix it up for y'all this morning. All right, so this is a special use permit to allow for the administrative offices and resource centers for medical services for WellChild. I'm joined here also by Karen Peace, if you guys have any specific questions for her in regards to how the business is running. Next slide. So what we have here, Chloe talked about it, we have the special use permit from 2020. That's going to be in red. That's 687, 680, 688, and 659. The new parcels that we're adding to that is the 693, 681, and 685 in yellow. But really the most important part of this slide that I want to touch on is that light industrial zoning that's shaded in purple. That's going to be a theme that gets kind of continually brought up through this presentation. So I just wanted to put it here at the beginning so we can kind of get it into our minds. Next slide, please. So this is just a little bit more of a zoomed in picture. We have the red, that's the 2020 special use permit. We have the yellow, that is the current application. You see 688 and 681, one is red, one is yellow, where it says future underneath it. Those are currently vacant lots that WellChild does have plans to build structures on in the future. Next slide. So again, this is some drone footage going back to that light industrial zoning. You can see how it really butts up to that RU3 multifamily zoning. And then if you look to the right of that picture, you can see some of the commercial as well. So it's really kind of wedged in between those two things. Next slide, please. This is my favorite slide of the entire presentation, because when you look at that light industrial zoning, you might be thinking that maybe some of the houses are a little bit run down, they're not taken care of. Karen has done a phenomenal job of maintaining these houses, fixing these houses up, making sure they have great curb appeal. If you took that house and put it next to Young Avenue Deli in Cooper Young, it would fit in there perfectly. You would not assume that this would be wedged in between commercial and light industrial. And that's how most of her houses look. She did not know we were coming to take these pictures, and this is just how she maintains them. So that's why I really love this one. There's another picture I love as well later on. Next slide. So this is a view south along New York Street. So that house I love right there, 680, is on the left. If you see the fence on the right, that is kind of the demarcation between that light industrial zoning. Next slide. So here we're on the north side. We're viewing the north along New York Street. There on the left, you can see that orange-yellow brick. That's kind of the demarcation between the commercial. Next slide. So here we've got 659 Philadelphia Street. That's my second favorite house. You can see right to the left there. There's that light industrial zoning. You have that big parking lot. Landis Street, when Philadelphia Street is looking through the front of their house, they are looking at the back of Landis Street's properties, parcels. Next slide, please. So again, there's that light industrial zoning I keep talking about. Next slide. Just kind of a different view here. I really like this picture with the contrast. You can see that the arrow building with the light industrial. You see that parking lot, and then you see that house right next to it. Next slide, please. And that's what that house looks like. That house looks just as good as the one on New York. It's gorgeous. It's just you wouldn't expect a house that nice to be bumped up to light industrial. And again, I just want to keep driving that point home that what Karen's been able to do with these properties, and how she's been a good steward of the neighborhood. Next slide, please. 685 Philadelphia Street, that's one of her properties as well, obviously. The vans behind there, those are kind of the lifeblood of her building. She provides services to many schools throughout Tennessee, and they use those vehicles to get there. 681, which is next door, that is the building that burned down. She does have plans to build a structure on that. In the meantime, what she's going to do is she's going to screen that property, so when it's used for parking, if it's used for parking, that will be shielded from view. Next slide. So this is just a big overview of that entire area, and then the next slide is going to again show that light industrial zoning, how much it pushes up to everything, and then we're still using the red for the special use permit from 2020, and then the yellow for the current special use permit application that we're doing. And that wraps up my presentation, unless you guys have any questions for me.
Any questions?
I do.
Okay.
I'm not familiar with this business model, but just out of curiosity, why is it set in residential versus commercial?
I'll let Karen Peace answer this one.
Hi, I'm the owner and CEO of The Well Child, which is a business since 2000. And I used to be in that building you see at the end there, at 23,000 square feet. And then COVID hit. So I had to really sell my building quickly, which thank God I did. And then we applied for the special use permits to move a lot of the offices into the houses that you've been shown. And then we leased the back of that building. You can't really see it. You can only see the parking lot. But if you go, I don't know, can they see that? Is there anything? There's a 8,000 square foot building that I leased at the same time, and I've been renting that for 4 years now. So they want to sell it for like 8,000 square feet for $1.2 million, which it's in not horrible, but it's bad shape. So I would probably have to spend, I don't know how much. And I'm not back to where I was pre-COVID. We're just incrementally getting back to where we were. So it wouldn't be wise of me to go in debt $1.2 million when I'm still, building the business back. I know there were some concerns of some of our neighbors that they were worried about traffic, but we don't have any patients come to our buildings. It's just our staff. We go to the schools and we see all the children and we give all our services in the schools. So we've been in that. I bought the building 650 New York Street in 2008. So we have been Philadelphia and New York Street. Since then, we're not increasing, but, so the building I'm leasing right now, they're trying to sell it. So if they sell it, I have to figure out how to still survive my business if I have to move out of that building. And this is kind of what this plan is about. For me, I love the block. I live on the block. My son lives on the block. His best friend is moving in next to me. We love the block, both Philadelphia and New York Street. And so we're not going to do anything that really deters from the appearance of our home. So, any other questions?
We need your name. We need your name and address for the record, please.
Yes, ma'am. Karen Pease, Pease, 693 New York Street.
Okay, thank you. Any further questions of her?
No, that was very helpful, because from the sound of it, it sounded like people were coming into
No.
the homes for services, so now
No, and just the employees, no more than we've had since 2008. Yeah.
Ms. Cameron, how many, what's your fleet of vehicles? I saw the vehicles back there. How many vehicles do you guys have?
So, we are in Nashville and Knoxville, so I'm thinking, like in total, there might be 30-something, but some are in Knoxville, some are in Nashville. But we take our teams out to the schools in those vehicles.
So all of everyone would come to the home, and then everybody kind of piles into
Yes.
each van and disperse from the central
Yes.
location. Okay.
Yeah.
I guess I'm thinking about the on-street parking. Are you guys parking on street with the amount of vehicles that you're seeing come in and out? And if so, how is that affecting the neighbors?
None of our vans are on the street parking currently. And so, some of our staff that are in these administrative buildings, they are doing some on-street parking. That's why when that house burned down on 681, and then, we kind of leveled it, then all of a sudden everybody because safety is a huge issue in our area. We've had, we're close to a lot of violent crimes. We've had, our buildings broken into. Safety is really, they just want to get as close as they can, because it's 90%, 95% women.
Sure.
So,
I understand. Thank you so much. I appreciate it.
Thank you. Okay, the applicant, are you through with your presentation so we can hear are you finished with your presentation on the applicant side, Mr. Whitehead?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, we're ready to hear the opposition. If you'll come up and give us your name and address and your statement of opposition.
Hi, my name is Brana Pinolis. I'm the owner of 683 New York. If you could go back to that New York Street. Well, so yes, that one right there. So that's Schwartz Electric right there, and then we're the first house there. And I bought the house in November of 2022. The previous owner had been there like 20 years. I don't really have a problem with what's going on like right now, but this is looking like an expansion into more properties. And the cool thing about Cooper Young, one of the cool things about Cooper Young is that it's sort of a mix of residential and light business and restaurants and so forth and so on. I am very concerned that this is essentially a tipping point for this street, because with this future use and the one that they're looking at right now at 687, that is going to make the street almost exclusively occupied by businesses versus residences. And one of the concerns I have is I don't live in this property, but my son lives there right now. But I bought it with the intention, because it's a shotgun house, of being a place that, as an old lady, I can go live in and not have a lot to take care of, and go easy in and out, and still be in a fun and vibrant neighborhood with great neighbors. And also to be an investment, because it's Cooper Young, for either myself, if I eventually sell it, or my heirs, if, I'm no longer around, if they don't want to occupy it. I think my concern is that if this neighborhood goes into this tipping point, that I'm only going to really have one buyer potentially for my property, and that would be the people who are now trying to expand this business, because who would willingly come into a neighborhood and be essentially the only house that's a residential? Now, I did speak to their lawyer who called me, who I did raise the concern that if this is a business, who else is actually on the street at night? There's the railroad at the end, and naturally there's business right there, because you don't build houses right pressing against the railroad. But there are there are people, including the petitioners, who live in there. But who's going to be there when all of these are businesses during the day, where there really isn't that much street parking? And people have to turn around. It's a one-way, it's a dead-end street as it is. And their attorney told me that, not to worry about that, because their employees are going to be living in these properties. And I was like, well, I don't know what that business model is, where you hire people and they're living in your properties. So you're the boss and the landlord. I don't know, or if it's really some kind of internship program where the clientele they serve are then going to be living in these properties as employees, interns, but essentially group homes. I'm not sure what that is. I really don't know, and I don't really think it's clear from the information that's been presented what that's all about. But the bottom line is that this is a residential neighborhood that really cannot, on a dead-end street, that cannot support the traffic, that essentially will become an abandoned area at night and not be safe. And the petitioner even just mentioned some of the crime in the area. And it's going to change forever the nature of the neighborhood as it stands and as it was intended, and as there's really no reason to change. This sounds like a very expanding business, and I wish her all the success in the business, but this sounds like it should be in a business area, not occupying ever-increasing numbers of homes, in her own neighborhood. So, thank you very much. If you have any questions.
Any questions?
No, I appreciate that. That was a very genuine concern, and as a resident, I appreciate you for coming up and expressing that. I don't think anyone else, would have said it and kind of hit it quite well as you did with what you just said right there. Thank you again.
Sure. Thank you.
I have a question. Beside your initial purchase, have you made significant upgrades and investments in the home?
I did. Significant is a vague term, but I actually just a month ago, before this notice, installed a large shed in the back. I had to get permits for it. It was like 9 by 12 storage unit in the back, because they are small houses. So that was about a $10,000 investment to improve the storage ability of the house. And when I purchased it, we did a lot of cleanup, replaced some windows, cleaned up the yard, replaced the furnace, the air conditioning, plumbing, painting, you know, the usual thing after a place has been lived in for 20 years and just need a little bit of deferred maintenance and a little bit of freshening. And as I said, some infrastructure improvements. So there were some whole, you know, wood had to be replaced and stuff like that. So that's about it.
Anybody else? Any other questions? Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Applicant, are you going to rebuttal?
I do have one of her. And so I want to make sure I'm understanding this. The red areas are properties that have already been purchased by the applicant. The red. Mr. Whitehead, the red is already owned by your client, correct?
Yes, sir, and approved by this body and the city council.
Right.
And the yellow is proposed. That's what she's trying
Yes, sir.
to. So, ma'am, and I want to make sure I understand your concern. So would you be the only residential left?
Well, there's another house right next to our house. That's that one, and then the one next, yes. And then there are these other ones down here, but there is another property. Well, actually, I don't know, because I thought they were all residential when I bought the property because they looked like residential houses and people were coming and going. And then it was only once we were there and we saw kids, you know, teenagers or something out there, like looking like they were doing occupational therapy or something. I don't know really what they were doing, but it's like, oh, there's a lot of coming and going from these houses. But, and that's fine. You know, I mean, totally fine. The thing that I'm just concerned about is that there's this one that's going to be the next one, and then what? You know, then what? I don't want to be in a position where I only have one potential buyer for my property down the road. You know,
Thank you.
That's it.
Point well taken. I share that concern. I see what you're saying.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, we're ready.
How much time do I have left?
You have 3 minutes.
3 minutes. So Josh went ahead and passed out this support of Care and Peace. There's 20 people on there on New York, Philadelphia Street. He's passing it out right now. These are people that support what she's doing. Josh, can you go to that first slide after the Q&A? Oh. So they receive Brana's house. And then again, it's bumped right up to that light industrial zoning. The commercial is kind of down at the other end of the street. Next slide. Again, same thing, just showing it from drone footage with the overlay. Next slide. Same thing. Next slide. Now, no tea, no shade to OPD, but when they give conditions and they do give you approval, they have a pretty high bar. And so I want to go to A here, where it says the project will not have a substantial or undue adverse effect upon adjacent property, the character of the neighborhood, traffic conditions, parking, utility facilities, other matters affecting the public health, safety, and general welfare. OPD has a very high bar for that. You guys have seen it. And then the next one that, if you remember those two pictures that I showed you, those houses that I really loved, the project will be constructed, arranged, and operated so as to be compatible with the immediate vicinity. I appreciate Brana coming in. I mean, anyone that cares about Memphis enough to come into the rain and talk to you guys, we absolutely appreciate that. We just truly believe that what Karen's done for this neighborhood has been good. And we don't see it as adverse whatsoever. And when she does build more structures, if she does build more structures like she wants to, it is just going to add to the beauty of that street. And with that, any other questions?
Okay, any questions?
I do, I have one. Yes. The houses that were already approved, were they approved prior to the opposition's
So
purchase?
they were purchased in 2020.
Okay.
She moved, the opposition moved in 2022.
Okay, so they were already
Correct.
approved.
Correct.
Okay, thank
Yes.
you.
Anybody else?
So the individuals that you just distributed here would be representative of home occupants, but not necessarily owners, is that correct? They're occupants, they could be renters.
Yes, correct.
Anybody else? Okay, hearing no further questions, thank you. We're going to close the public portion of the meeting. Mr. Gill.
Motion to approve SUP 2024-032.
Okay, we have a motion. We have a second. Is there any discussion?
I have a point of just discussion, and I think what I'm troubled with is that I don't have any concern about the good intentions of Wellchild. It's an excellent model, and it's a great service that's needed. My concern is that when a person purchases a piece of property, if there's no distinction between the existing properties and what they present themselves to look like, and what that investor who is a resident is purchasing, you don't know that changing nature of what's been approved for those red zones and those two yellow future zones. And so Ms. Panolis could make that purchase without any knowledge of what that future looks like and find herself in the exact situation she finds herself in. And so it would appear that it would be incumbent upon the city to some degree to make some distinction so that individuals don't find themselves in that. I wouldn't want to move into a neighborhood tomorrow and find that it's been, many other things have been intended for the future, and my investment all of a sudden changes, and I don't have a long-term place to live because in just a few years, she's absolutely right, there will only be a few residents or neighbors within a stone's throw of each other of a residential nature, which is different from a service nature and a renter's nature. I think that is a fair observation on the other party's part, and it's kind of a conundrum for me at this point because I do agree with the premise of Wellchild. I really do. I know of the work. It's great work.
Okay, thank you. Any further discussion?
Well, Dr. Norman, welcome to the Land Use Control Board. I'm conflicted with those sometimes.
Baptism by fire.
I do like Wellchild and echo Dr. Norman's sentiment about that. However, I do understand as far as being in the neighborhood where you're currently invested in, the nature of that neighborhood is changing quite drastically. It does, create a conflict with doing good and doing well, right? Doing good for the neighborhood and the community while, doing well for yourself. So, I mean, it's a twofold for me. Torn, yeah. Let's see here.
Oh, you're torn.
He's gonna do it, isn't he? We're snapping.
Okay.
Oh, you're torn.
Okay, any further discussion? If not, I assume we're ready to vote. Do you want to do it individually? Okay.
There would be no abstentions.
Thank you, Daryl. Thank you, Daryl.
Well, with that segue, then I'm going to ask for Mr. Thomas's vote first.
No.
Mr. Tolles? No. Mr. Gill?
Yes.
Mr. Norman?
No.
Mr. McKinnon?
No.
Ms. O'Connell? Mr. Winter?
Yes.
Ms. Wilbanks?
Yes.
Vice Chair Lyles Wallace?
Yes.
And Chair Sharp?
Yes.
And did I get everyone? Motion carries.
Thank you. Motion carries.
Thank you. That was exciting.
All right. Okay. Is there anything else? Is there any further